Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful morning out here at the shop. Got here early today. A little tour of the yard. Show you the wood piles I have to pick from. Wake up every day being thankful. Even there's days where you don't wake up thankful for stuff, but if you just look, there's just wood and wood and wood. There's more wood going on here than I know what to do with. This is only one side. This is only one side of the yard. There's a great place that a friend of mine has rented me some space in, and there I'm working on a little ram's head. These are things that hopefully I'll get some videos in, because he actually has shape to him. I just saw the interest in the log. It's not really for anything, and I usually don't get time or the energy to work on things that don't really have a set need. So it's kind of cool to be able to work on that and have it in the corner there undisturbed. I can come back to it. If we have to move it, we'll move it. It's like the video, you know, where I put in where my brother showed up and we just sat there and watched the beast for a while. And the beaver activity, the beavers are actually making carvings too, which is kind of cool. You see that beaver stick down there? He's carving something. It almost looks like a big face in a log. Come down here, and they've really got this locked down. There's a huge pond that there's beaver dams all through here. For the yard, there's just wood everywhere. But it's important to me to take time to do these things in the mornings. See the hole right in the middle of the pile? That's kind of cool. That's a big pile. There's just so much wood here. Kind of endless what I could pick and choose from. And I'm thankful for all this cool wood and this place where I get to work up here. Alright, well, I haven't done a video about saw maintenance, so I think it'd probably be a good idea if I did one now. Now, these are just basic tools that I like to use for cleaning. It is very important that you guys have an air compressor, and these cheaper guns, I like them. They output the most air pressure that I found nozzle wise. A saw that doesn't run right is not going to want to work right. That's kind of like me when I get bogged down. Kind of like anybody, when you get bogged down, you get sore and tired. You need to refresh. You need to clean up. You need to sharpen stuff. You need to sharpen yourself up. You need to sharpen your saws up. Just real quick, with the electric tools, usually what I do after every use is I go in and I blow out the fins. That's very useful with the air compressor. Blow out around the switches, because nothing is worse than a switch that sticks. Some have the variable speed dials on them. I get in there and clean those out. Now, I'm going to open this, and I'm going to guess that it's completely full of fine sawdust, because I haven't cleaned it in a while. It's not bad, but it is definitely caked. And sawdust gets piled in here. It will get piled in behind the muffler, and you'll see it smoking a lot. So usually when I blow out, I blow the fins out through the flywheel and the coil area. probably once every 2 or 3 months, I take the cover off, blow all this out. So we want to keep our air filters clean. I have not been, and this saw is starting to act up. And usually I like them nice and clean. Okay, so I know in another video I did some sharpening things, but here I'm going to touch base again. Usually when I sharpen or touch up the chain, I just use a paint pen to mark one of the teeth. That's where I start and finish. Usually what I prefer to do, I know a lot of guys like to hand file like this, right? Personally, I find it's easier to hand file. You just grab right a hold, push your bar down, right? And put that file right in to the angle and just give it a few pulls. And you can feel the file biting in. Now sometimes you angle the file this way, up a little bit, to kind of get back in the tail of the cutter. Generally, I keep the chain sharp and I keep the angle the same. Nice straight pulls, nice and clean, and you can feel that. Just let the file do its work. You just kind of push it in there and drag it. Right? For the other side, and you can see right where the edge of that tooth meets up with a file. You want to clean. That's what you're doing when you're sharpening. And this one's kind of getting a rounded appearance, so that's where I change the angle of the file a little bit, because it's not fully cleaning the tooth. Now I do this until I look right where the two meet up. It's a very fine line. It's right off the tip of my thumb. And I look right as I'm filing, because the file is straight, I look for that edge to be nice and straight. I'm looking to make a new edge, diminishing the space between that tooth and the file. Now, every tooth has a vanadium or chromium coating on the outside of it, and what that does is, with the softer metal as the bedding, that little tiny, it's microscopic actually, it's really thin. The chromium coating is super hard, so that gives that tooth, because it comes across the top, that gives that tooth a super fine edge. So that's pretty much all that I'm doing when I'm sharpening. Is I'm bringing the bedding up to that chrome coating as tightly as possible. And see, there's different things. I'll put my thumb there, use that as a guide. I go tooth for tooth, and I do what feels best. Like whatever. See, this tooth is pretty nicked up. I can tell because it's hard to see in the camera, but when I put that file there, there's actually a very faint highlight or a flash at the end of the cutter. That means that vanadium is kind of getting rounded off and pushed into the bedding. So I want to push it back out. This is an older chain too, and there's kind of a dark gray. There's actually streaks on top of that chromium coating. That means the chrome coating is just about worn away. This chain has just about lived its life. This has been a good chain. This has been in service for me for probably 5-6 years now, and it's only cut clean wood up until recently because it's been getting worn out, and I'm getting new chain. I figure I might as well just use it for what I need it for and not be so fussy. But when I get a new chain, I really keep it out of the dirty wood. I have, you know, here I have dirty wood chains, and then you know, newer chains I will keep as clean wood chains. Now I have the duckbill pliers, and I have a scrunch, and I have a hacksaw blade. One thing I'll always do, when I go to sharpen or I go to clean my saw, I will also take the bar off. I mean, I don't do this religiously. I will do it more if I don't have an air compressor available. This is to keep your rail clean. You see these big chunks that are falling out of there? These will actually cake up in the bar, and that'll stop you from getting oil. And this is a perfect example. Now what you just saw there, this little pin, that's because the groove in here it's slotted for a bigger saw. I just put a spacer in there. I could actually take these studs, I could swap them out from one of my bigger saws to actually make this bar fit, which eventually I will do when I have the time. I don't know if you can see the bottom of this chain. It's pretty whipped right on the straps, right below the rivets. It's starting to mushroom out and get a lot of wear. That's why it's a dirt chain, because it's real loose now too. Personally, I really like the loose chains. They carve better, faster. But that's up to you. I like tight chains. I like nice tight chains too. Now, I drill my own oil holes, right? Passages. I make my own, but this is a good example of keeping your bar clean, because you see where that's just caking right in there. It's getting in the rail too. So I will take a hacksaw blade or a utility knife blade, anything that'll fit in there, and I'll just work that stuff out. That's nasty crud, right? And I'll go down the rail and make sure that it's keeping clean. I just pushed a little bit out, right? Same thing here. You see it's just creeping out of there. And look at that, that is packed right in there, and that's an oil passage. You see that there, all that goo, right? You want to get all that out of there, because that will keep your oil from getting to the chain. And that is when we have problems, right? And after I do that, this is another reason I like these tips, because they just fit right on the groove, and they fit in these holes, right? And you can see there's a lot of holes in this bar that I make for oil passage. Now, this is another thing. Another quick thing. There's a slight burr forming along the edge of the bar. I don't know if you can see it. It's not real bad yet. As these bars get older and they wear out, it's the chain, as the chain wears and starts to V in, it'll create a burr here. When you're cutting, all of a sudden your bar will jam up. You'll feel it. Now, I just take a grinder. I'll go along very gently at an angle just to clean that burr down, and then I'll flatten the burr. I'll either use a belt sander, or I'll use the grinder to gently clean the rails down. A belt sander is really nice. because it gets them super clean and flat and true. And you know, you can hold a bar straight with just your hands if you're practiced enough at it. You can see the roughness. We're looking just at the top of the rails here. You can see that roughness. Now, I had structured this earlier this week just before cutting. There is where a lot of mushrooming has happened, and you see it's right behind the hardening of the tip. That you can't avoid that at this point. This bar's wore down. This is a dirt bar, that's a dirt chain, that's why I use them for that. Now, and that's important. If you keep your rails flat and you keep your chain bedded right, keep newer chain with newer bars, everything's going to perform better. So that's just a little trick there for cleaning the bar out. Now, as far as why I have duckbill pliers, specifically duckbill pliers, is I like the drum sprockets. I mean, you can run spline hubs and carry around spline hubs too and change them out, but my personal preference is rim sprocket, because there I could carry a pack of rims smaller than 2 hubs. I could carry 4 or 5 different rims. I like the duckbill pliers, and this is simply what they're really good for, is just snapping that ring on. Like I said, you want to be very diligent about keeping these fins blown out. And I like to get all the sawdust. I like to get the sawdust out from the trigger, out from under the covers. I like to get sawdust out of the saw as much as possible. The other thing you want to check is your oil passage. Now, that fine sawdust that I showed you see it in there? It's in the oil passage. So now, there's your basic saw stuff. That's very basic. Cleaning every day, cleaning every other day, cleaning once a week. Those are things that you can do to make your saw run better.